Good afternoon, adventurers, and welcome to a Taskmaster update. It's been a while. Had you like a little intro sequence that's like a simulation on how I sort of want the major region mod to introduce itself. Flying in on the back of our buddy over the caldera in which all the four main iterator characters are located. If you're curious about that, I do cover the greater majority of that in a previous video, which will be linked in the description and at the end of this video. But currently, we're talking about new, updated things, because I was waiting to finish Saint so that I could get like an idea of where I should place Taskmaster in the timeline, and just kind of know how things quote-unquote end, so I can sort of, you know, let the vibes melt. And the vibes have been melting. Like my brain trying to pin down the exact musical quality behind like what makes Rain World music what it is, the subtlety versus not so subtle versus what the hell instrument is that, and all that jazz. I'll get it figured out eventually, but you know, I think I'm starting to get that down. But back to the main point of things. I'm putting Taskmaster a little bit further onto the burner, and I've been doing some adjustment to his character a little bit. The original gray I felt was a little boring, but making him like a bright green or yellow color just kind of didn't feel right either, so I've kind of gone in between with this sort of like verdigris copper patina type color. I think it's quite nice, like lichens. And I've given him a friend who is quite a large purpose organism created by 8 Viridian Peaks off of the Vulture blueprint, and a little bit of love to make him not so murderous. Brings us to an interesting phenomenon, which Taskmaster does not actually have the Mark of Communication, because 8VP taught him how to talk, and made him so that he could just talk normally. So, like, yeah, you can speak to things, and you'll get dialogue on your little radio and stuff, in which you do have a name. I actually haven't seen any of the other, like, player character mods for Rain World in which the Slugcat has a name. It's just the blank. So Taskmaster's name is Sedgley. And the vulture that he rides around is called Crane. And there's sort of like a dynamic duo, like lore-wise. I don't think I'm going to give you the ability to call in Crane. I mean, maybe that could be an interesting, like, once per cycle thing, or if you find one of the vulture grubs, you could toss that SOB down there, and then Crane will come and pick up whatever creatures around you, like an airstrike, which would be kind of cool. Adding to the more things that you can do as Taskmaster is he has a cloak. I thought it was cool to wear a cloak, but, you know, why not have it so if you are standing still for long enough, maybe holding down or something, you'll just kind of do the white lizard thing and become the same color as the background, so maybe lizards aren't so likely to eat your face. All these abilities will have to balance out. You know, sometimes it's fun to have a character that can just go and do things that isn't like godly powerful, but is capable. So you're not sitting there just getting munched on the whole time. You can use your hand cannon to fire a piece of rebar through the green lizard's skull instead of bouncing off of it. Very fun. I've also done some more consideration on the actual landscape around the Golden Grove itself, and which the types of iterators there are not quite as, you know, cloudy. So there's not perpetual rain at night. You might be warned of a rain event every once in a while, but that's rare. So at night, you can just go and, do things. It gets dark and you get the nighttime stuff. But that doesn't mean that you shouldn't go and hide and go sleep in a shelter or something, because there are things that lurk out in the open. Cryptids, perhaps. Something like the Miro's Harpy, which is, like a cryptid to the freaking ancients. This bad boy comes down and will just like boink, grab you and just take you away. And this is your nighttime boogeyman. This is worse. I'm going to try to make this worse than the rain. But I'm not going to use like Vulture AR or something. I'm going to make it play with you. Kind of sneak around and say things and like, swoop in and smack you or drop you off other places, or maybe just grab you and like just shake you around a bunch, or inspect the Taskmaster and just be annoying. Have some fun with the AI. And speaking of AI and the massive supercomputers that are the main characters in this, I've done a little bit of tweaking to their design. Mostly the big angular spires on the side of the cans. I felt that those looked a little bit too villainous. It's just Sauron's crown out there. It's too pointy. So I've squared them off with an angled edge and figured out an exact purpose for them, which fits within the lore very nicely. That normally the water that is exhausted from an iterator as like steam and water vapor, which makes all the rain and clouds, just kind of goes to waste, more or less, or, groundwater. So all of that vent water is repiped and sent into these large low pressure cavities in which they are flash vaporized into water vapor. But since it's low pressure, near vacuum, it cools it very quick. Like, how if you spray a aerosol can for too long, it gets real cold. So the water cools rapidly inside of these chambers and falls to the bottom of them, where it's recollected, cleaned, and recirculated through the system. Very efficient. Which is why they're able to be so close to each other, because really the water's recycled within the can itself, for the most part. And a lot of the cooling is done by looping water under pressure through, thermosiphon systems and whatnot in the heat sinks. And they get rather hot, so don't touch them, they'll burn you. But I mentioned this before. But that's not today's episode. The main thing is timeline. I believe Taskmaster is going to be set, at least the major majority of it, after Rivulet, but more or less just. Far before Saint comes along and everything's all snowy and whatnot. And the reasoning behind this is, well, what's after Saint? I'm not going to say anything because, spoilers are evil, but let's just say that After Rivulet is the best option. And I have reasonings as to why the characters are still around whenever you do go find them as Saint. Which I think I've mentioned before, but I'll reiterate that looks to the iterators have to have some sort of like regenerative property on the puppet itself, because Looks to the Moon gets flooded by that water every time it rains, and she's more or less fine. Like, I assume the puppet's like not necessarily a machine, but is sort of like a machine, a biologic thing, but there's some regeneration going on. And after Rivulet powers Moon up, the regenerative systems may be back online. So whenever you go to Looks to the Moon and rescue her, basically complete the severing of the umbilical process, it's already severed in her case, so just unbolting her from the arm and putting the jetpack on so she can move around. The iterator can itself would kind of freak out a little bit, because it's like you just, you've removed a big chunk of yourself. And I'm going to say that whenever you come back there after that next cycle, you're going to find another moon. She's back, but is not quite normal. Just sort of a backup facsimile of Looks to the Moon. Which really what got me thinking about that is how insane she did not seem normal. She seemed really kind of off. For whatever reason, AU stuff. It's fun. And 5 Pebbles is just 5 Pebbles because he's too far gone for you to do anything. If you go and say hi to him, 8 Viridian Peaks will tell you vehemently not to go in there. Do not get contaminated. Don't touch anything. Why are you talking to him? Get out of that place with the blue stuff. Any scans will just return bad. Just don't. 5 Pebbles Rot is too, and he has to live his fate as it was. And then you can go and do all of your Taskmaster stuff. I'm actually going to make a preview for this, in which you go and explore the area, just the base game area as Taskmaster, before Rivulet, I guess, and kind of go and scope things out and talk to Moon, and don't actually, you know, do your big thing. It's sort of just a teaser, and it's just to make sure that I can get Taskmaster, or, you know, Sedgley, working properly, and, you know, kind of have something out with the character before I go and make the entire region. So you'd show up, explore the place, do your preliminary reconnaissance, and then return home from your normal starting area. So that'll be fun, and won't take years to produce. But, you know, the more the merrier. And I think that'll be a good way to start the Taskmaster saga, I guess. So, let me know what you think. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. And looking forward to playing with that level editor, because it looks very interesting. I'm kind of impressed with how it builds. So, I'll probably have some dev blog type things on here pretty soon. And try to figure out how to keep the ball rolling.